I would like to start off by welcoming everybody to the Dear White People in Conversation. I am Justin Simeon, the show's creator, filmmaker, writer, occasional hot dog maker. Just kidding, we have an amazing craft service team. And I'm here with our beautiful cast, Logan Browning, who plays Samantha White, Antoinette Robertson, who plays Coco Calandria Connors, John Patrick Amadori, who plays Gabe. We also got some Ashley Blaine Featherson for your pleasure, who plays Joelle, Brandon Bell, who plays Troy, and Marquis Richardson, who plays Reggie. And we're just gonna have a little convo, just a really casual convo where we're all lit in our homes in front of beautiful backdrops, just to talk about the show. So welcome, everybody.
Yeah.
Hi.
What's going on? So I think we should probably brag a little bit because I've heard that our viewership metrics are up quite a bit, almost 600%. 6 times as many people have been watching Dear White People as compared to the few weeks before. And I just want to know what everyone thinks about that and what you might attribute that to.
About time. It's nice to see people understanding that we need to cultivate content that inspires social change. So I'm just happy that people are taking in the amazing work that the Dear White People team put together, the writers, these amazing people right here.
Now, this last season, we changed things up quite a bit. The format of the show changed. A lot of characters that we thought we knew really well are showing different sides of themselves. I'm just gonna kind of go in order of the squares on my phone here. So there's no shade to this order whatsoever. But I am looking at Logan Browning. You stepped into a very new, different version of Sam this year, who's a little bit different than the sort of rebel and very sort of straightforward activist that we've come to know. What was that like for you?
It was challenging but rewarding because Sam is an iteration of Le Créateur, Justin Simeon. All of She's had done a lot, right? So I felt like with all of the experiences that she had, she kind of came to this point in her life where there was confusion. I'm trying to do my best, but I'm creating chaos. I'm trying to calm the chaos. And then I think she had to turn inside and inward and kind of slow down and start to figure herself out and meet her hero, which was interesting. So for me, it was liberating, but also challenging, but I think very necessary.
That's great. And I must say you were beautiful and wonderful as Sam, as always. I'm a little biased, but I think it's also very true. Antoinette, I want to talk to you a little bit because, Coco is one of those characters that I felt as the filmmaker behind the movie that it was based on, needed to be represented in every way. Her voice needed to not only be in the performer, but also in the writing room and in the directors behind the lens. And, I feel like, especially in season 2, we had a very beautiful episode that sort of asked questions about the intersection between femininity and Blackness, directed by Kim Pierce. And it was a storyline that was really, really pushed by, the women in the writer's room. And Coco continues to carry very complicated feelings and storylines into season 3. I just want to talk to you a little bit about, because you have such a wonderful way of threading a pop culture kind of performance that's funny and accessible, but also carries these deeper sort of meanings and feelings. What is it like for you to play Coco through the years?
I absolutely love playing Coco. I feel like there have been representations of Black women on television that I've identified with, but none as much as Coco, because I feel like there are times when they try to push the narrative that we're just sexual objects, or we're not articulate and we're not ambitious, or we're just stereotypical versions of what their idea of what Black is. And I feel that having a character that defies that, who can be ambitious, articulate, sexual, all of these things, and assert herself in white spaces, feels like it's empowering for little girls to see. And I wish it's something that a representation that I had growing up. But I just love how you guys layer all of these themes and let the world know, hey, we're not monolithic, number one. Number two, we're all full of intersections. Number three, like, take it or leave it. This is Blackness, every hue, every shade. And it's been a joy to play Coco.
Awesome. John Patrick Amadori, our resident white person for today anyway. You play a character that people have a lot of opinions about. Some people are obsessively in love with Gabe, right along with Sam. Some people can't stand him. And in a lot of ways, Gabe's character helps us kind of unpack really how attitudes of very well-intentioned white people still, have sometimes a struggle navigating Black spaces. Talk to me a little bit about your performance of Gabe. And I'm just curious, like, what you think the show uniquely has to say to white audiences in particular.
Well, my nickname for Gabe has always been Good Guy Gabe. He's always trying to make the best decisions for everybody involved in any situation. And I think one of the struggles that white people have that want to be an ally don't know how to do that. And I kind of have this thing in my head that Gabe is kind of like a physical representation of like a moral episode in sitcoms. Where he finds himself in these predicaments that he may have put himself in by insinuating himself or by the things that are going on around him, and then he has to come to terms with whatever those things are. I think playing Gabe has been like a really gratifying experience for me because. Not that I would have done half of the stuff that he does, but I understand the intention of wanting to be a better person. And when you love somebody, how much you want to be there for, that person or the group of people or your family. And as the show has progressed, Gabe's progressed and he sees everybody and all the other characters as kind of a piece of himself. They're a piece of Sam, they're a piece of him, they're a piece of everybody. And it's that acceptance and awareness of the people around him that, I think he becomes more heightened and aware of that as time goes on, even though he still is navigating himself through that because, he's still learning. And I think that's been a gratifying thing is still finding that searching, always having like something to look for. There's never an empty moment for Gabe.
Yes. Well, I certainly appreciate that you play the character with a lot of compassion and humanity, and you help us see the reasoning behind his choices, even ones that maybe we don't always understand. So, again, I think you're all quite wonderful, and I will just tell you that as we continue this conversation, this very objective conversation.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, my next square is Marquis Richardson. And I got to say, Reggie, in a lot of ways, you've been with us since the movie Dear White People, where Reggie was, maybe like a love interest option for Sam. But what's happened in the series is Reggie's really been fleshed out into, really the heart of the show. The episode explicitly about police brutality, directed by Barry Jenkins in season 1. Of course, surrounds an incident between Reggie and armed campus police. But beyond that, we've also really tried to explore and dig into the depths of that traumatic experience and how it lives on in Reggie from season to season. How has that been for you embodying, what I'm sure at times must be a very painful perspective, but that means so much to so many people?
I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to tell this specific story, to be able to continue to explore with Reggie. It has been a cathartic experience for myself, just being able to explore myself, what it means to be young Black and male in the world. And, that energy, especially from that episode, like it doesn't die, and it still lives with all of us. And to this day, I can think back on that day. Anytime there's a murder, anytime there's a news flash or whatever, it's just right there with us. Specifically with this season, further diving on to what his life looks like dealing with PTSD after that moment. And then also, how does he move on? Establishing that relationship with Moses, played by Blair Underwood, and further exploring the relationship between Reggie and Joelle, and the dynamics of, Joelle being this superwoman, and then Reggie being obsessed with this problematic hero, which is an issue that we still, are dealing with today. So interesting for sure.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up. I think that intersection of the Black Lives Matter movement and the Me Too movements, really do collide in our third season, and I want everyone's perspective on that in just a minute. But now I'm going to talk to Brandon Bell, who has been with the project since like the first table reads we were just having with some homies to see if we liked it and if we were ready to try to make it a movie. How has it been for you, Brandon, playing Troy over the years? And I know from my perspective, Troy at this point feels just as much yours as he does a creation of mine. But I'd love to hear about what it's been like playing Troy and how you've tried to evolve that character through the years.
Well, thanks to you. It's been an amazing experience, a blessing to be able to get paid to do what you love to do, but also work with like really talented, intelligent, thoughtful, mindful people. Troy's cool. I really enjoy playing him. I think especially from the film or season 1 to today, we go from someone who is kind of been groomed in his father's image, right? So he doesn't really know how to listen to his own voice. There's a very, there isn't a huge self-awareness going on with Troy, but as we have evolved throughout the television series, I think one of the cool things is seeing Troy's flaws, come smack, dab in his face, and how that's affected other people, his so-called friends, his so-called allies, people he's worked with. And that has helped him evolve from someone who is kind of just enjoying the fruits of his father's labor and the privilege of, coming from a little bit of money and having this authority figure who's well respected, to someone who's more self-aware, and also, I think more importantly, someone who wants to right his wrongs and follow his own and listen to his own voice. And we see that in season 4 with Fried Chicanery, his collaboration with others. It's been a joy to see someone grow so much, for sure.
Well, I have to say it's such a pleasure writing the show for you and for everybody on this call, because you guys really have to thread a lot of needles with this show, and I have to say you managed to make Troy both an aspirational figure and a cautionary tale, all sometimes in the same scene, and it's really a pleasure to watch you do that. Now we're moving on to Ashley Blaine Featherston, who has also been with us since the movie, although her character Joelle, who is, proven to just be one of the most enduringly popular characters of the series, didn't start off with a name. She started off with more of a description. Talk to us about that, Ashley, about the transition from the movie version of the character to the series version.
Oh, man. So, so when I got the opportunity to go to Minneapolis to shoot the movie in 2013, right, Justin?
Yeah.
Summer. It was like around this time, right?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, so weird. Anyway, when I got the opportunity, I was so excited with my 5 lines, and I went out there. I was so excited because it was my first feature. Which just goes to show how beautiful this journey has been. But it was, even then was such a collaborative, fun experience working with friends and honestly making friends. And, because I only had about 5 lines, as an actor, I was like, okay, I need to do something with these 5 lines though. Like I need to, add some color, try to figure out what her personality may be, what she wants. And one of those things was, it was vague in the script, but I kind of took it as like, I think she kind of has a thing for Reggie, even though she's best friends with Sam. I think there's a small energy, and it was something you and I talked about on set, and you're like, yeah, I think that's cool. And here we are going into season 4. And that's obviously been a huge part of the story. And then, transitioning into the series has just been such a blessing, because it goes to show like how much anything, but particularly a character, can grow. Like Joelle now,
well, in season 3, being the voice, you know, kind of taking over Dear White People shows so much growth. When she was, you know, we opened season 1 with her sitting on the couch, just really supporting Sam, you know, do her thing. And then so much has just flipped and turned on its head. But what I'm most proud of with Joelle is the representation she shows of someone who's strong, but also who's deeply flawed and trying to find herself, and how Joelle and Reggie get to show Black love in a way that's complicated because they're both dealing with loving one another while figuring out how to love themselves in a world that doesn't love them. And that is very difficult. It's something that I lived through in my personal life, and so I have a lot of experience with it. But I'm just so grateful, like Antoinette said, for the representation that Joelle provides, because I got that watching A Different World, you know, preparing to go to Howard. And I'm just grateful that other young Black women in particular get the same through us.
Well, I think that's great. And also, Ashley, as always, a testament to the magic that happens between, you know, really fantastic casting and the way that inspires writers. You know, so many cues of where Joelle goes are taken directly from choices that you make as an actor, even starting with the film. And it's just a really wonderful collaboration that I get to experience with you. Now, before we move on to some of the bigger topics about season 3, you bring up something really interesting, Ashley, which is the messiness of the relationships throughout Dear White People. And I realize that everyone on this particular call has been shipped with someone else on this particular call at some point in the Dear White People universe. What is that like as actors, getting to kind of play these messier sides of these characters? And it, especially because you guys are all friends, sort of, you know, mixing love and life and work in all kind of ways. And anyone could jump in on this one.
Well,
not all at once. I know
resident
everyone's dying
messiest.
to talk about it.
Yes.
The resident messiest, let me just say. Honestly, it's really fun because it's real. Like, all of these, especially because they're in college, they're exploring themselves. They're exploring themselves in other people, which is something as you grow older in your relationships, you learn, like, you have to try to find yourself outside of relationships. But we're all, like, for Sam specifically, like, she's finding her identity in Troy, her identity in Gabe, her identity in Reggie, because she's confused. And I'm grateful, you know, that I have, when I worked with all 3 of those guys and my ladies, my Coco and my Joelle, that all of our relationships when we're working are authentic, they're beautiful. I feel really lucky to have these people to play with, because they take the work seriously, but also know how to have fun. So thank you for making me super messy, Justin.
My pleasure.
Messy. It's interesting. It's really cool that we all have like such a great dynamic in real life. And then, so it just kind of adds to the chemistry we have on camera. I feel like Troy and Coco were just messy, and then layer Sam was her best friend and kind of sort of knew she liked the guy, but then dated the guy. It's just been messy. And I just kind of like to see that, like, you can have a friendship with someone and things can get messy, and you can still, if something happens to their family member, their father dies, you still have their back, and you get back together like nothing ever happened, you know, like you live and let live. And I just love that we explore all of those dynamics.
I liked when they were shipping Joelle and Gabe, because not in a romantic way, just gotta make that Joelle and Gabe never had any relation, but I thought it was really nice to see, because I think Joelle and Gabe are kind of an unlikely pair, but they just have always clicked. And I always love getting to do scenes and play with John Patrick, because I think that people saw that and they were like, actually, Joelle and Gabe kind of have a thing. Like, they are really good friends, and that was fun to play.
That's a really easy dynamic to play off of. For me, it really is. It takes like zero effort to like have that. I think maybe that's the kind of response that, like, as creators and writers versus watching us interact on camera, it just manifested the way that Joelle's character you just explained manifested into it. It really is. There's some sort of like almost competitive like thing that they have together with each other, with the little, you know, little comments they make, and they like that little bit, you know, and it's fun because they also know that, like, there's nothing mean behind it, and they both know that they care so much for the people around them. I think that's think something about Joelle in particular is that like you can see how much she cares about the people around her. And I think maybe that's like an unspoken dynamic that Gabe and Joelle have. And then speaking to what Logan was saying, you know, being able to have fun, like we were doing episode 8 of season 2. And I mean, Logan and I couldn't wait to like scream at each other. Though she came over and we like killed a bottle of wine, listened to like Smash Mouth. Hey, listen, I'm putting it up there.
Crap.
Smash Mouth, but then we'd go right in, like we would start talking about like the dynamics, and then without telling each other, just go right into like the script, full forced, pacing around each other. And I think, you know, being able to share those kinds of creative moments of, you know, unabashed human emotion and realizing that we can really express these characters and live through their messiness. That's the stuff that really makes the show great. And I think we can all really relate to it.
It's twofold for me. I agree on all the things about the messiness and the layers. It's so cool to be able to have that texture when you're doing your work. But it's also awkward as hell. For me, anyway, I don't enjoy sex scenes.
Ditto. Love you, but ditto. It's weird.
I mean, you know, and we know each other so well, so it's almost like, you know, you're kissing your sister or your brother. You know, incest is best in some opinions, but you know, that's not my
Not
thing.
in the opinion of anyone related to the show. Let's just be clear. So one thing I want to bring up, and this is both, you know, from your perspective as actors on the show, but also as people who watch the show and obviously, you know, are part of a show that really is about kind of taking our lived experiences and making that something accessible for audiences everywhere. But this season, we really kind of played with a couple things. One, we have Reggie, who really does, in my opinion, personify what the Black Lives Matter movement is all about, and that he actually faced police brutality and is still dealing with its aftermath, this invisible aftermath in his being. And he meets this really sort of magnanimous hero figure played by Blair Underwood, who I feel like Reggie really needed to kind of lift him up from some of the depths of despair that he's been in previous seasons. However, a sexual allegation is levied against this hero, and the characters throughout the season have to start to weigh, you know, do we have to choose a side here? What is more important in this particular matter? Obviously, Reggie's life matters and the things that he's going through matters, but if these allegations are true, those allegations matter as well. And I think that, you know, we very purposely created a scenario in season 3 where very, very smart people who we completely understand, we're just on different sides of this issue for most of the season. So I don't know. I would love to just kind of talk to you guys about that as artists, even if it's about your character or not.
Well, I love the fact that we had conversations about needing to take our heroes off of pedestals if they do things to our detriment. And that's just, if this professor, not if, the world is saying if Muffy said he did it. And to have her back, like, we can destroy him. I don't care if they think he's God. It doesn't matter. He violated you. There need to be consequences. And I feel like within the Black community, we have our heroes, and sometimes because we know it's so difficult for us to achieve a level of success, we try to guard those heroes, even if they do things to our detriment or to someone else's detriment. And I think that needs to stop. I think there's also a place where you should probably separate people's work from what they do as an individual. I don't think that the work itself, like, oh my God, we have to throw away a huge body of work because of that. But I think there need to be repercussions, and people should feel comfortable speaking out.
I like how we explore how you have to let people find things out on their own. You have to let people come to their emotions and make sense of what's going on in their own time. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because Reggie struggles with that. He cannot see what so many other people who love and care about him so deeply see. And at one point you kind of see us all be like, all right. You know, we don't want him to get harmed in this process. We don't want anybody to get harmed in this process. But we had to allow Reggie to come to that realization on his own as a person, but particularly, I think, as a man. I think that I'm excited to see what happens going forward. But I think in my head, that was a huge turning point for Reggie. It was almost like a pathway to go deeper into his manhood, to trust his instincts, like Antoinette said, to not just, you know, hang on the coattails of heroes just because they're all we've got. And I just thought that was really powerful, because I think we've all maybe have had a situation like this in our own lives where you see something, you want to protect someone you love from something, but you can't. You have to let them get there on their own time.
I totally agree with everything that you're saying, Ash. For Reg, it was like an exploration of this idol that he's had, who actually shows up on campus and is the cause of the matter that kind of brings him out of, that space of PTSD and finding his own, finally feeling like he has found his community. So once those allegations were brought up, there was an internal conflict for Reggie, and the stages of grief. You know, there was anger, there was acceptance, there was denial, there was, all of those emotions and whatnot that he did have to come to that journey himself, which also reflected stuff that I was dealing with in my personal life, in regards to heroes that I look up to, problematic heroes. I mean, you can wear a rainbow cape on a carpet, but if you're not caping for people when it actually matters, then what are we doing?
Right. And the other thing that you bring up there that I think is really interesting, that we tried to make a parallel to, are the stages of grief. I think a lot of times the first reaction to racism that Black people get is anger, bargaining, or denial. And what we tried to point out, I think, this season is that even within Black communities, that's the response to an allegation. It just is helpful to understand it as a process of grief. Now, just to make it a little more personal, maybe, do you guys have to go through any special process of grieving or emotional preparation before or after doing the show? Obviously, we deal with a lot of not only poignant and human topics, but things that everyone here has experienced a version of in their lives. And it can be very triggering sometimes. I think about shooting the Barry Jenkins episode from season 1 and really needing to take breaks on set emotionally for people to calm down and come back from the experience and the trauma of shooting it. Particularly in season 3, though, I'm curious about how you guys just deal with that as actors. Do you have to sort of protect yourself in a special way from the material, even as you engage in it? Or is it something that feels maybe like a release when you sort of play out these very dramatic scenes and situations?
For me, it feels like life imitating art, imitating life. And so there are these moments where it's like really overwhelming, because I can speak of season 2 and going into season 3, like there are traumatic things that happen in our lives that sometimes we don't take time to process. And the mindset is, well, if I keep working, I'll bury it. But at some point in time, as we see like in season 3 with Coco, those things, if you don't deal with them, if you don't heal from them, they're going to come back and haunt you in some capacity. So I for sure have to do a Coco and Dear White People detox. Especially season 2, I was eating like I was pregnant. It was a whole thing. A whole thing. I went up a whole size. But I'm just saying it comes down to the fact that all of us are so invested in this work. Also dealing with police brutality in real life, but having to be on a set and have an actor point a gun at one of your castmates, but it felt so real. And then Jordan Edwards was murdered 10 seconds after that. So it really feels like it's a lot. And yeah, I have to definitely decompress from it for sure.
Yeah, I think I echo exactly off what Antoinette said. A lot of times, especially the way Justin, you write and create is life imitating art. And so for me, it's very fluid. But you also provide on set a safe space to have conversations, whether it's between scenes, whether it's during the scene. And that's helpful, right? Because these issues are huge and they're not simply solved with black and white answers or catchphrases or things like that. They require listening to other people, getting different perspectives on various topics. And so I appreciate you and just the cast and the community of the show to just be able to have those conversations. Because a lot of times, right, at least for myself, it's like you ingest the news and what's happening, but it's something that you keep within yourself and maybe you talk to a family member here and there, but in terms of having like a forum for just that communication to keep going and expand. And the show does a great job of allowing us that. So, and then I also pray and meditate too daily. So,
I don't remember exactly what episode it is, but it's from last season. It's when Reggie comes to the realization that, Moses did sexually assault Muffy. And, he and Joel have been on the rocks, and he comes to their dorm room and there's little words, but essentially Reggie just breaks down and Joel is there to comfort him. And I just remember obviously shooting that scene. It was tough because of the subject matter we were dealing with, but it kind of goes back to what Marquis was saying. Like, I also know because we're friends and because we all kind of live life together that in many ways it was cathartic too. So it was almost like separately, we're also having a moment as friends, as people who are advocates for one another in each other's lives. And because we're so connected, there are times that comes out, and it might not seem that way. Obviously, you're just watching the television screen if you're just a viewer. But, I'm just here to say that oftentimes for many of us, we have seen situations that happen on set where it's so much deeper than just the subject matter that we're portraying or that we're talking about. And that was just a moment that was really beautiful for me, because also, I love how you all write, because Joelle could have sat there and been like, well, I told you, why didn't you listen to me? I don't even want to hear it. But she just listened and hugged him. And to me, that was such a lesson, even for me as a Black woman, as a partner, like sometimes that's what needs to be done. There doesn't have to be a reconciliation for anything. There just has to be a love, a care, and a support. And that's enough.
And I'll say to that moment,
when you bust in.
Why I like being on this show is because all of the weight of the life and the art that we're experiencing at the same time, we are lucky that we are on a satire and not drama, because you guys, the writers, you can't help but put some funny in there. And you like, I think Sam's gonna stumble over books trying to tiptoe out of the room in the middle of this really important moment. It was just like in episode 5 when the student makes the joke, makes a comment, and everyone's like, what? Like that moment.
When he says we should do what they do in Germany.
Oh, yeah.
Goes, what?
Yeah.
Educating people about the Holocaust.
And the reason we need it, and it's not just in the script, but we also are like that off camera. Like our lunch times are literally like being back in high school, not even college, literally high school, cutting up, acting a fool, and we need it. So even before we step off set, I feel like we are taking care of each other's mental by like trying to find the levity in all of this.
Also, Justin, can I just make a note, the fact that you just mentioned that line, like how brilliant that is, because we were saying that character said that line about, America should, take note from how they dealt with the Holocaust in season 1, episode 5. And now there's articles all over the place talking about how Germany reconciled, their horrible past with the Holocaust and how America needs to do the same. Like, we were talking about this seasons ago, and I'm grateful for the uptick in viewership, but like, gosh darn it, like this show is so healing, and it's been healing, and we're going to continue to be healing, I love that.
That's right. And thank you for mentioning that. Also, one thing I want to mention is the cast coming together to put together a memorial fund for Jordan Edwards. I'm just going to start with Marquis and just talk about, what is the connection between art and activism in your mind? And talk to us a little bit more about that memorial for people who don't know about it.
Okay. Well, I guess the connection for me between art and activism, I became aware of that connection for myself, specifically in the first read of episode 5. That moment for me is when I was like, oh, okay, this is bigger than me. This is bigger than us. This is big. And so we have a responsibility to be active and to protest and to take a stand on things in our art. Yes, it's entertainment, but it should say something. So regarding the Jordan Edwards Memorial Scholarship, Brandon is the one actually who reached out and called and was like, yo, this is what's going on. He's right here. I don't want to tell.
You can jump in, Brandon. Tell us.
Exactly what Marquis said. For me, it was just I get frustrated with feeling like feeling powerless. Posting and stuff like that is fine. Awareness is fine, but I wanted to do something. And I was born in Dallas, Texas, so Jordan hit me on a really deep level. And so I just called the law firm and got in touch with the family. And it was just like, how can we as a show, help? This is on my heart. And it was therapeutic in the sense that I wanted to support the family, right? I wanted to just, having lost, close people in my life, I know what that's like. But in the way in which Jordan was killed, I can't imagine that. So it was really just art, becoming activism, supporting the family and wanting to, follow through on whatever vision or goal they had. And they were just it was so beautiful and graceful how they handled it. And they wanted to create a scholarship. And so without a doubt, it was like, let me hit up Marquis. And he was already on point. And we made this thing, a cast involvement because of what the show represents, but also art becoming activism, not just, for me personally, it's not just acting and then I take that hat off and I do whatever I want. There's people suffering. And so my art is important, but I feel the people who dedicate their lives to activism, et cetera, for me, it's my responsibility to support them in whatever way I can. And as a cast, when we came together to do that, it was a really beautiful, but also therapeutic moment. And in terms of going forward to continuing on that kind of mindset as well. So.
For information, the site is the Jordan Edwards Memorial Scholarship.com. You can still make donations. We were able to raise about $100,000 within the cast, crew, Dear White People family, Netflix, Lionsgate, and then contributions from the world, actually, and all over the world. It was cool to see dollars from like different continents going into this thing that we dreamed up in collaboration with the family. So thank you.
Well, that just epitomizes why, for me, it's such a joy to get to work alongside you guys. You make me better, and you're direct collaborators involved with these characters and the evolution of the show. Now, we have just about 5 minutes left. So I want to look to you and hear things that maybe you want to talk about, questions you might have, or just moments from last season that you want to bring up. Is anybody dying to go first here? John Patrick? Mafia.
Mafia. I wasn't in the Mafia episode.
So for those who don't know, Mafia, it's not a Black thing, but I know it as a Black thing because I played Mafia with my Black friends and certainly played it a lot in my 20s, which I have recently left. Talk to me about how that was for you guys. That was super fun for us to shoot and write. So
nostalgic. It was so yeah.
I think the best part of Mafia was the table read. Like, we were so excited after reading that we were going to do that I think just getting to the table, I think all of our table reads in general are super fun. People don't know a lot of the times that, before the narrator comes in, we have Justin reading the voice of the narrator in previous seasons. That's super fun. Or we have other our producers and other writers reading other roles, which has always been super fun.
When we're working, we're not all on set all the time together. So when we get opportunities to like hang out and like play together, like the mafia scene or any other really big group scenes, it's such a joy because it's like we feed off of each other in terms of energy, and it's just such a great vibe. And I'd never played mafia before. And then I played at Courtney's house, I want to say a little after that. And I think Brandon tried to kill me a couple times, but they made like the doctor or something. I can't remember. But I remember Coco getting kicked out of that game early, and I was mad because I was like, I want to be here.
Well, I can certainly attest to the writer's room playing it and capturing all sorts of video of various members of the writer's room getting very irate and very sure that someone was the killer.
Yeah.
Maybe that includes me, I don't know. But we have plenty of blackmail footage should any of us run into any gaps anytime soon.
That's funny.
Anybody else want to talk about an experience from season 3?
For season 3, what was really special for me was just the intertwining of being able to play with different characters. Because like Logan was saying, like the only time and Antoinette, like we don't really get to see each other as a big group. So outside of being at a table read, which is probably like my favorite day of the week if I'm not working, is being able to watch everybody and I'm just like get to be a fan and everything is so funny. And then, we live together. And it's really brilliant. So being able to like, have scenes with Brooke and seeing like Brooke and Nia's character, like, and see them kind of like do their thing. And what was really fun for me is like the addition of Deontay really lifted the storytelling and the character and the quality of the show so much, having his addition, like the addition of his character. That to me, like that was a highlight, is being able to like work with Griffin Matthews consistently throughout like season 3 of just this. Another thing was like the beautiful levity inside of like this real world that we're reflecting. To me, like that was a highlight for me.
Yeah, Brown.
Yes, for sure. Yvette is amazing. She was perfectly cast as your mom. But I think for me, like...
wait, sorry. You were saying Yvette Nicole Brown? I just wanted to...
Oh, I was saying I'm obsessed. I'm so happy because I remember you saying, I wonder who's going to play Coco's mom. And I had her on my list, but I couldn't tell y'all because I was like, no, I'm going to jinx it. I'm not going to nothing. And then when I saw her name on the door, I ran and I was like, yeah! I just love throwing her in as an element to throw Coco completely off of her regimented control freak game. And it was such a beautiful experience.
Yeah, she's one of the greatest.
I mean, if we're name dropping, I got to play with Laverne Cox, no big deal.
You did. Sam got to meet her hero this past season. It didn't go so well.
I did.
Yeah. But that's what I love about this show, and particularly I think marking the accomplishment of us going into a 3rd season and now going into a 4th season, is that this is an experience where we get to work with everyday brilliant performers, whether they're in the main cast and our special guests that come on, but we're constantly leveled up by who we get to work with every day. And this is the most authentically inclusive project I've ever worked on in my entire life. And I really believe that we should be highlighted in that way, not in a way to diminish anybody else's show experience. But I think what we're doing on our show is extremely unique, extremely powerful, and deeply important, because any and everybody can watch our show and be seen. And like I said, not only be seen, but be seen authentically and for the fullness of who they are. Being on Dear White People, I got to work with a beautiful trans actress. I'd never had that opportunity before. In the same season, I get to sit across from Blair Underwood. In the same season, I get to hug Yvette Nicole Brown. Like, this is what we're doing. I get to learn from Logan. I get to learn from Marquis, from Antoinette, from John Patrick, from Brandon, from everybody. Like, in addition to the writers constantly caring about us so much, to talk to us directly, to say, every season, I want to point out that we sit down and you all ask us, what do we want to talk about this season? What's important to us? Is there anything we want to explore? How are we feeling as an actor in our journey? That is beautiful. And I always say, I'm so devastated that this show sadly is coming to an end, because I pray that I'll have this opportunity somewhere else. because it's so unique and it's so beautiful. And I'm just really grateful to be a part of it.
I gotta throw in Oba Babatunde Flosser.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Broadway and short, like,
Who
plays Dean Fairbanks?
Dance Fever Oba, for sure.
So amazing.
Can I just also say before we go, because you're talking about season 3, and it's something that I've personally loved as an artist about this show, is that the way that you challenge us in our own thinking, our own perceptions of ourselves, even with the season finale. So in the season finale of season 3, you were flipping the entire concept of the show into Dear Black People. You know, people are like, what if it was this? Great, let's do it. And I remember being so confused. I was like, Justin, I just don't understand. How does this, so why are they wearing cornrows? And you were explaining, like, if Black people were at the top, people would aspire to that kind of beauty. And I'm like, I don't get it. I just don't, it doesn't work. And you were challenging the notion that, listen, we've been in this skin and this body for forever. We couldn't even conceptualize the fact that it was the other way around. Couldn't even figure it out. I was like, what are we doing? It was so weird. It was so much fun. It was so brilliant. So thank you for constantly keeping us on our toes.
Perming Eric's hair. Wow.
Not I was like, Justin, hats off to you and the writers. Not many shows can deal with police brutality, colorism issues, have some kind of political undertones about dealing with, you know, if you guys haven't seen it, it's been a year by now, but like essentially having some kind of a bigot in the White House, dealing with the Me Too movement, dealing with us dethroning our heroes in some capacity within the Black community, and then also deal with Black love and Black sisterhood and all of these things, PTSD in the Black community, and how taboo it is for us to even talk about therapy or healing from our traumas. So like, hats off to you guys, because this is such a brilliant show. And now people are discovering it, but it's been brilliant.
Well, I thank you for that. You know, the show is sort of known for having a lot on its mind and having a lot to say, but truly our strategy in the writer's room is making it a character-first show. And those characters at this point especially are co-creations between myself, you guys, and every writer and director that's touched this show. So I just want to thank you for being here. It's always great to see my family in my perfectly natural setting, such as the one I'm in today. And I just want to thank everybody for joining us for this very important and really exciting conversation. At least I enjoyed it. I found it important and exciting. And you can, of course, catch Dear White People on Netflix, streaming right now. But truly, thank you, everybody, for joining me. And thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.